Hey, co-reporters, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome newbie. Today, we are going to be catching up on the Astro World Festival tragedy and the lawsuits that Travis Scott is finally responding to. I've got a great friend to the channel, former entertainment attorney Stephanie from Wine and Chill here with me to break down his legal tactics. So everybody, please give a warm welcome to Stephanie.
Hi, everyone. How are you?
I hear them. You say they're doing well.
Good. Can you hear me?
Yes. Stephanie, by the way, did you dye your hair? It looks amazing.
I did.
I love it.
Thank you. I did it on Monday. I'm like, what day is it? I did it on Monday. So something a little new for the new year. So we'll see.
It looks good. It really catches like your skin tone and your undertones very well, which is important.
Thank you. If you're in the New York area, your hair's best friend, Shireen, I forget what Shireen's last name is. I'll remember and I'll put it in the channel. Best hairdresser, best hair salon in New York. So highly recommend. She's in Brooklyn.
And it looks perfect. Nice. Bruna, I love Portugal. Ever since I went there like a couple months ago in September, I've been dying to like live there and have a house there one day. I love Portugal. Hi, thanks for watching. So, okay, by the way, you guys, as always, we're so lucky to have Stephanie here. She's got a YouTube channel called Wine and Chill. I've got it in the description box. Please subscribe to her channel for more legal insights, entertainment insights. But like you're free to ask whatever questions you have. That is why we've got her here to help us break down the situation. So, and by the way, thank you so much for being here, Shan, my lovely moderator. Subscribe to her channel as well. So, okay, Travis Scott is finally responding to the lawsuits against him. And he's got a very interesting strategy, which is to ask for himself to be removed as a plaintiff from the lawsuits. What do you think about that, Steph?
Yes. So when I covered this on my channel, there were, I think 10, maybe 11 lawsuits. There are now, as of today, 200. Sorry, a plane is flying over. Brooklyn is a loud place. 246 lawsuits against him currently. Mostly just like for background, for negligence, gross negligence, premises liability, intentional infliction of emotional distress, which we can get through that, are most of the claims. They're similar. So his defense is, and I'm happy to share my screen, so I have the court documents here. His defense is basically that he is denying everything, a general denial, and that he wants to be removed from all of these lawsuits as a defendant with prejudice. So with prejudice is the important part. With prejudice means these claimants cannot go and resue him. If the judge grants the motion without prejudice, that means the plaintiff can just they can update their complaint. So they're allowed to amend their complaint and say like, okay, you want more facts? Here's some more facts. And then try again. With prejudice means you can never bring this up to court again in that court. So yes. And he also is doing press now. So I saw that he was, I don't know if you saw Grace, speaking with Charlemagne.
You know what?
Interesting. Yeah. It was a very interesting choice for that. Also, it seemed very disingenuous.
1,000%. I feel like he actually caught him contradicting himself on a couple of moments, you know, for example, and I do have the video here. We'll probably do you want to play the video now? Should we play it just to show what we're talking about?
Yeah, we can. And then I have the court document as well. So like whichever order we want to put them in.
Okay, so let's start with the conversation with Charlemagne the God, just because it's super quick. So I've stopped it at the moment where he is claiming that he had no idea that this happened until the day after. It's a mess. And then he also claims that the police officers, the security people here, actually didn't even let him know that people were dying at his concert. In fact, they congratulated him on a job well done and a great festival, as if they were unaware that people were dying at his concert. It's crazy, you guys, okay? So here is a clip of the video right here. Let me just play it. Let me know if you can hear it too, you guys, or it's echoing.
They said it was like chaos and trampling being reported.
Sorry, I always listen to anything on like 2x speed on YouTube. Let me slow it down to 1.2.
I was like, wow, like Grace, you can understand this?
Yes. Since the early afternoon, like hours before the show even started, were you informed of any of that ahead of time?
Well, no, the police, he came and to my trailer and he congratulated me on the event and having something like this in Houston. He let me know that it was mishap at the merch booth earlier. They shut it down, but they opened it back up. They seemed got it under control. He was gonna step out and just let us know if we need anything. Have a good show.
Isn't that crazy? Like, how does that happen that the police would tell him, oh, congratulations on a great show. There was a little issue here, but like we temporarily shut it down and then put it back up. Nothing he acted like they didn't say anything about what happened. Meanwhile, and I'll show you guys in another quick clip here. I have to take off the audio or else we'll get flagged here. But people were screaming to the camera people, to anybody who would listen. They were begging them to acknowledge them. And the fact that people were dying, they were saying someone is dead and everything. So what exactly is Travis Scott talking about here? Like, to me, it is just so delusional to imagine that after this, the police would go and say, hey, great job. There was a little bit of a hiccup somewhere, but that's fine. Nothing bad happened. Like, does that sound reasonable to you, Stephanie? Or does it sound like he's
Not
straight
at
up
all.
lying?
It sounds like a falsification to me. And it's also going to come out because something that was interesting and that people brought up when I reviewed it on my page, and I'm happy to send that over to y'all so you can have like a background on like the original lawsuit filings. People were asking, oh, why is no one yet at that time when I first did the video suing the police department? Which is a good question. The police department is likely going to get roped into this and is likely going to also get sued for negligence, which is like, okay, why is there not a proper plan? If there was a proper plan, like why was the plan not executed, etc. It was very obvious and apparent through multiple police press releases that they did inform him that something happened, which he acknowledged when he did his original video, where like is also super disingenuous. When that first video he did and he was like, I'm sorry, and he like looks very out of it, which he did say that. So he's kind of flip-flopping.
Exactly. Like, I think, his mistake is putting all of this stuff out there. He should have, I don't know, had a statement run through a lawyer and that's it, and stayed quiet after that. Because in total, how many billions of dollars of lawsuit is he facing now with this new 10 billion on top of everything?
Yeah, I would say probably the 10, maybe like around 12, which he doesn't have that money. So, and one interesting part of this is also all of these artists should and do have insurance. So the insurance companies, the way that the clauses are drafted, the insurance companies have to pay to defend the artists because they pay for the insurance, but the insurance companies are likely going to push back and say, I'm not defending this. This is not a part of the insurance that I'm providing to you. You went outside of the scope of the insurance, which is probably general negligence, etc. So that's going to be interesting to see, because we're going to see the insurance companies pushing back and saying, I don't want to pay this out.
And mind you, even if they were to pay it all, from what I read, he only had $26 million worth of insurance. He does not have 10 plus billion, $13 billion worth of insurance anyway. So
exactly.
I really want to, and by the way, thank you.
Kate, cover all of this.
No, not at all. Thank you so much, by the way, for this, Caitlin. So he's talking about the police before the deadly the deaths started kind of happening. So I guess because of the festival, it was a couple of days and this and that. So thank you so much for that correction. So can you take us back to, and like you can pull up the documents now if you'd like, but how is he saying that he is not responsible?
So this is interesting in that, hold on. Let me make sure. Can you? Oh, here we go. Do you see? Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So that's really small. So I'm very much have awful eyesight. So let me pull it up on my side so I can see. Okay. So basically it's very short. This, all it is 4 pages. Technically it's 2 pages. Like, this is irrelevant. This is the entire answer. So the entire answer is just this: general denial. Pursuant to Rule 92 of Texas Rules of Civil Procedure, defendants generally deny the allegations set forth in the petition, and then defendant respectfully requests that the claims against these defendants be dismissed with prejudice, and that these defendants be granted such other and further relief, both at law and in equity, to which they are entitled. That's it. No explanation as to why he feels like he's not liable. No explanation of the facts of, oh, I'm not liable for negligence because I was not negligent. I'm paid to perform a show. I perform a show. Nothing. That's all it says. Which is honestly a waste of a filing, is foolish, is likely going to get denied. No judge is going to be like, oh yeah, that explains all of it, of course.
Why?
It's not going to work.
why would it be so short when he's facing billions of dollars of lawsuits? Why would they not go bigger?
I think so. He is getting represented by O'Melveny, no, Melveny, I think, which is a huge law firm. So like they have significant experience like in litigation, like they call it like big law, like one of the top 100 firms in the country. I think the strategy is to basically at least just you have to answer a complaint within a certain amount of time. It's just to simply answer the complaint, and then there's 246 cases or 245 cases. So just to answer all of them, most likely the same way, and then start building their defense, to be honest. It would
Okay.
take so much time to
Mhm.
do a thorough complaint, a thorough answer to everything at this
Mhm.
point. And something that the defendants are likely going to do, since there are 246 cases, they might want to consolidate all of the cases, because to fight every single case individually is going to be like a huge pain for them.
And so with this 2-page response, he had
Mhm.
covered how many? Because if my timeline is matching up, the 10 billion came after he filed this response. So would he be filing another response to the 10 billion, or does he want it all wrapped up in this response?
It's probably a separate response. So this is from 12/6, I believe. Let me
Oh, so
I
3 days ago.
cannot
So
see.
it's not
Yeah,
as
so this is a few days ago.
uh,
So I think this might be after the 10 billion, but
yeah.
most likely the 10 billion lawsuit, which is separate, will likely have a more thorough response, I would assume. This
Mhm.
response, I went through some of the cases that I had originally looked at, like original 10. He's filing to like the small individual plaintiffs.
Mhm. Wow. And so, how do you see this playing out then? So, what do you think from your experience working as an entertainment attorney or an attorney in general? Have you dealt with like lawsuits that were like worth this much? Maybe not in this capacity, like a concert tragedy, but how do these usually play out? What are you expecting?
Yeah. So, for context, my background is the happier side, I would say, of the law, corporate law. So, transactional work, completely like contract drafting, contract negotiation, etc. The goal of my job has always been if you draft the contract well enough, you can avoid litigation. Litigation happens when people do either feel that they have been harmed or wronged, or if you have a sloppy contract and there's ambiguity there, so then you go argue about it in court. In
Mhm.
terms of some of my colleagues that work in litigation that I spoke with, their belief, which makes sense, is that this is going to become a battle between Travis Scott, Live Nation, and the insurance providers, and not necessarily about the plaintiffs, because the insurance is supposed to cover this. So the insurance is really the deep pocket. And so even though Travis Scott is trying to get rid of these cases, it is less of a burden on him if the assumption is, okay, well, my insurance will cover it. The insurance is likely going to do a lot of the work for the plaintiffs by saying, actually, we're not covering you because you're outside of the scope of your insurance. You did all of these extenuating circumstances. You did all of these things that you shouldn't have. They're going to pull up his old Instagram posts that he took down of like fan of concert goers at previous concerts with blood on their face and him encouraging it. They're going to pull up like how many people have passed out at his concerts before. They're going to pull up him encouraging people to rush the stage. They're going to pull up all those things and say insurance doesn't cover that. Insurance covers general negligence, and like you are outside of the bounds. You are grossly negligent. Most insurance doesn't cover gross negligence. Like gross negligence is basically up until the line of like you purposely did something.
Yeah. And so, how does that work? So, if insurance is refusing to cover it, would they sue
They
him?
would sue
And
him. Mhm.
And so how much would insurance sue him for? The maximum that he was covered for?
They would sue him for example, whatever the plaintiffs are suing for. So if the plaintiff said, okay, I'm suing for $10 million, that 10 million should come from the insurance. The insurance would then sue Travis Scott and say, I'm not paying this $10 million. Like this is not covered under your liability insurance, under your umbrella of like general liability. It's not covered. So I'm not paying for this. So
Wow.
that's likely what's going to happen is you're going to start to see separate fights. I don't think Travis Scott is getting out of this. It's
No.
highly the only person that's getting dismissed from these cases is Drake.
Well, you know what? And I do want to get into that. So, how did Drake even get roped in? I know he performed, but Drake is not known
Yeah,
to encourage.
no, yeah. I think Drake got roped in because he's only listed in back when I did this like a month ago, out of the original like 10 or so lawsuits, he's only listed in one. And I think that attorney was like, oh, I want my case to get the media attention. So I'm just going to put Drake on here.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
And
he will
so
get removed.
you were talking a little bit earlier about Travis Scott's Instagram post. So Prairie Flowers wondering, will insurance
Mhm.
subpoena his records for these?
Oh, 100%. And
It's
also, the thing about it doesn't matter if you delete things on Instagram, people have screenshots of it.
Mhm.
So they'll probably subpoena like his like archived posts, his stories, like all of those things. And if not, like it's easier to get things nowadays because there are screenshots floating around anyway.
And then what happens with the camera crew? And here's what I'm wondering. Will there be a criminal investigation into the camera people who were there listening to people tell them to their face that people were dying? They could have saved some lives. You know, the guy in the video could have saved some lives by alerting somebody. I'm sure they had walkie-talkies or something.
Mhm.
So could he face criminal charges as well or anything like that?
I don't think so because he's acting like within the scope of his job. So as long as you're protected. And then I also like just to like give the full picture because that was my original question. Like, why would you like ignore them? Like clearly something's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
There should never be so little security that people are scaling the structure that the camera crew is on. And I saw a few people that work in the concert space saying the camera person can't hear them like at all. Like it's wired to like a mission control. So the camera person likely couldn't hear them. I'm not sure. Like I don't have any I guess like background knowledge about how that works, to be honest. Cause like from a normal perspective, like from us looking at it, we're like, oh, like, well, you see these two kids up here, like, why don't you like stop what you're doing?
Mm-hmm.
From the perspective of people I know that like worked in concerts, they're like, oh, he probably was like doing his job. Like, I don't know what these kids are screaming about. They should get down. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. I feel like it's debatable because I feel like anybody's normal response, if you see that, is like, okay, well, what do y'all want? Like, how did you get up here? Like to remove the headphones?
Yeah.
But from the video, it doesn't look like he did. So
Okay.
not
Okay.
sure.
Sorry, I'm hearing the door creaking in the background. I'm like, is this house haunted? Is someone creeping around back there? Oh my God. Okay. Oh my God, this is very heavy. You guys, if you're just joining us, I am here with Stephanie from Wine and Chill, and we are breaking down the legal issues that Travis Scott is currently facing as a result of the Astro World Festival tragedy, where 10 plus people passed away, 8 at the concert and 2 after the concert in hospital.
Yeah.
So the strategy, the strategy to kind of say that he's not responsible for anything, leave it to the security, leave it to the police or whatever. What do you think about that strategy? Is it a
I think
smart
it's
one?
no. It's not because there's too much evidence of people just watching the video of him stopping, looking around, him acknowledging like, something is wrong, him starting again and just not caring.
Mm-hmm.
So that strategy is just foolish. It's not going to disprove anything. The better strategy, which we'll see like when the defense actually files like a proper response, is going to be, oh, well, a concert, you waive your rights to certain things when you go to a concert. You disclaim the liability. It's on the back of concert tickets that say, like this, et cetera, can happen, blah, blah, blah. But there are exclusions to that. No one goes to a concert thinking, oh, I'm going to have severe bodily harm, or oh, I might unfortunately pass away at a concert. That's not reasonable.
But do you
But that's
think,
likely the argument that they're going to say. Because
but do
people
you,
do hurt themselves at concerts, particularly
yeah.
festivals, but not to this level.
You know, I kind of worry that Travis's reputation for, sort of maybe inciting violence or like
Mhm,
rushing and
mhm.
stuff, like we're saying that can help people get money out of him, that he's been doing that regularly. But can he also turn that around and say, listen, I've shown you that people get hurt, that people they bleed at my concerts and everything. This happens. So what did you expect coming to my concert? I feel like it can go both ways.
Exactly. And I think that's what the defense is going to pull. But even when you disclaim certain liability, you cannot say, like, oh, yeah, you might die from this. Like, it's
Mhm.
not. Well, I guess something like similar that like most people are familiar with is if you go like rock climbing or something and you sign a waiver. And the waiver says like, oh, certain things can happen. Like we have harnesses, we try. However, this is an activity that's inherently dangerous. If something happens to you, you waive your rights. Certain like workout classes in New York are like, this is high intensity. Like something happens to you, you told me you're healthy, you waive your rights.
Yes.
No one ever waives all of their rights except for when, and there are probably a few other exceptions, but the big exception is what do you call them? Skydiving. I was like, when people jump out of the plane for whatever silly reason. But I think it's like craziness. When you go skydiving, you waive all of your rights to any claims. You cannot, like, if you
Really?
go skydiving and it doesn't work, like, you can't sue anybody.
Well, it makes sense. Like it's just
Which
so
makes sense.
dangerous.
But
Yeah.
like nobody would compare skydiving, jumping out of a literal plane, to going to a concert.
Exactly. So sorry, just real quick, Lauren, yes, this will be available to view later on demand, either on my Facebook page, which is where you're watching from, or here on YouTube. So don't worry about it. And Prairie Flower, Hulu did release a documentary and it was up for what, like 48 hours? Stephanie, did you hear about
Yeah, I
it?
was like, not even. I think it was up for a couple hours and then got pulled. To be honest, it was A, in poor taste, and B, like very much gave like a money grab, and C, like a documentary takes months to make. So like what like the police investigation is still going on. Like what were you going to get out of that? Also, speaking of police investigation, I think it should be noted that Travis Scott has like a very close relationship with the Houston Police Department. So originally a few advocates were trying to push a like a non-interested third party to actually do the investigation, which Houston
Yes.
PD declined. I think that is a little bit inappropriate.
Yeah, I
More
heard
than a
about
little. I
that
think
as
it's like
well.
very inappropriate.
I agree. So Jamie has a question for you. She's asking, people who attended previous Astroworld festivals say it was only a matter of time before this tragedy happened. Will they be brought to testify?
I don't think so. Just because I have seen a lot of people make these comments, I think this is going to be a lot of like pulling info from social media. The people that will be like, if it were to actually get to trial, which most things don't get to trial, besides Jussie Smollett, which I'm talking about later, which I'm very surprised that foolishness is all the way in trial. It will probably settle. But if it were to get to trial, they're definitely going to interview people that were actually there. They're going to interview police officers. They're going to interview the security people. They're definitely going to interview like those two kids that were talking to the cameraman. Would be positive. And if at the very least, like take depositions from people.
And now Reeses has a statement. I worked at a venue in Arkansas when he came to play a concert here. He was arrested for inciting a riot in Rogers, Arizona. My coworkers had injuries from him telling the crowd to rush the stage. So in a case like this, could her coworkers, like the security, sue him for inciting people to do something like that would put them at risk? Are we
Yeah,
expecting?
and one of the prior cases that's still ongoing, believe it was in New York, an indoor venue, and he encouraged his fans to jump off the balcony. And one jumped off the balcony, landed on another fan, and the fan is partially paralyzed now. Because of that, and has been in an ongoing lawsuit with Travis Scott for 2, if not 3 years. Like lawsuits take a very long time, and a lawsuit of this magnitude is going to take years as well. Like this is not going to have any type of quick closing, particularly because there's not an incentive on his end right now to settle, because if he settles with one person, it sets the precedent to settle with all 276 people.
Exactly. And now, with there being an open possible criminal charges or criminal investigation in him, how does he navigate the two of these things? How does that work?
So that is what we are going to see comes out of like the Houston PD investigation, because they're currently investigating everything. I think because they are an interested party, like it's very inappropriate again. Likely, if he were to get charged with anything, it would be like a separate firm to represent him. So he would need like a criminal defense firm. The firm that's representing him now does like corporate liability, things of that nature, litigation, but criminal defense is completely different. So we're going to see what that happens. But yeah, he would retain like separate counsel to combat that. And he has been charged before for doing less. So my opinion is that since he's been charged with inciting a riot, reckless disregard, like all these things, like he should definitely get charged in this case as well. Like 10 people died. It would be like a gross miscarriage of justice if he doesn't get charged with anything.
Exactly. And if he were
And
to
it
get
shouldn't have
charged,
taken this long either, but
well, that's my question, right? It's like if he were to get charged, wouldn't it have happened by now? It's been a while. When was the Astroworld Festival?
a
Like
month now, I believe.
October? I feel like it was October, September. Let me see. If you guys know, please let us know in the chat. Was
Yeah.
Astro
I feel like beginning of November, maybe.
right? It's only been a month. Okay, you're right.
I think it's only been a month, yeah.
6 November. Yeah.
The other times that he was charged, I believe he was charged within the week. So this is taking significantly longer. Yeah, they were, or if not, like the same day. Like it was very much immediate. So this is taking longer, which if we were to ask somebody that is a bit more, I would say like criminal justice minded, they might say, oh, this is like a much more complicated case, so it's taking longer.
Yeah.
They have to review everything. If you ask somebody it's a bit more cynical, it's like, oh, it's because he's gonna get off with everything. We'll see.
Well, I personally would go, well, maybe it's because they don't want double jeopardy. They want to make sure that they, cross their T's, dot their I's when they charge him. They don't overcharge, undercharge, whatever. They want to make sure, because there were many deaths in this. And I think that they really just want to make sure they get it right, maybe.
Maybe. That's also possible. That's like a more optimistic way to look at it, yeah.
And so a lot of people are now asking, sorry, just a little bit off topic, but do you cover like the Duggar trial or anything like that on that subject?
I haven't thought of them in years. I didn't even know which one is on trial. There's so many of them.
I know there's like a million of them, but yes, Josh Duggar was found guilty. Thankfully. So now what type of a chance does Travis stand like in any of this? Like what's going to happen to him from here on out? Like, I don't know that you just bounce back after facing $13 billion in lawsuits, potential criminal charges coming. Like what's going to happen here?
I think in terms of like why he did like the Charlemagne interview and like why he's like now like, oh, I have to get ahead of this, is there's like two things happening. Like there's a court of public opinion and there's actual court of law. They both matter, because if the court of public opinion is done with you, like it doesn't matter if the court of law said you're innocent. Like you're an artist. That means you have to perform shows. That's how you're going to make money. If people are terrified and don't want to go to your concerts anymore and they feel like you're a shady person, you're going to be broke. But there are a significant amount of people, surprising to me, that are very much like he didn't do anything wrong, etc. Which I don't see how anybody could watch that footage and feel that way. But whatever. I think it's going to be like very telling to see how long the story continues. Because if the story all of a sudden dies and fades to the black, then I think like he'll probably bounce back from it. If the story doesn't, then I think it'll be significantly harder for him.
And speaking of the court of public opinion, so I don't know if you kept track with this side of thing, because it's not necessarily legal, but W Magazine, they had an issue that was supposed to come out this month with him and Kylie Jenner on the cover, but then they ultimately decided against releasing the issue because of everything going on with Travis. But then a copy of it mysteriously leaked, and then in this copy they claim that Travis and Kylie are not a couple. They're just, a modern new family, on their own terms, aka baby mama, baby daddy, which has been around for a long time. So it kind of seemed like that was all orchestrated to distance Kylie from this brand. Khloe Kardashian came out on TikTok and said, I don't know why it's saying this. They are a couple, and they've been very much a couple for a while now. So is this something that we're kind of seeing in that side? Like, the Kardashians distancing from him, Nike already distanced from him, what the video game stuff distanced from him. Like how, like, is that
I think
that,
I think it would be very foolish of a brand to stand behind him. For what?
Yeah.
For someone who like doesn't even look sincerely upset about any of it. Like, what is the reason?
He was supposed to launch a new album around this time. So there is a Reddit subreddit dedicated to him where they're like trying to decode his Instagram profile to see whether or not he's
Mhm.
still going to release the album. So what kind of message would that send if he were to release an album right now?
That would be very tone deaf and dumb.
Hmm.
Like, it would just be stupid. It would be like, "Oh, I don't care. Here's more music. Go support me. Like, come to this concert and, like, maybe something bad will happen to you."
Yeah.
Like, I think it's, like, interesting if you just look at the Kardashians from a brand perspective, not like an appropriation, culture vulture, mess perspective, but just, like, as a brand. Chris
Yeah.
is 10 steps ahead of everybody at all times. So I wouldn't be surprised if Chris is like, "Okay, let's just do these things and let's continue along, and we're gonna slowly move the other way."
Exactly. So now there were a couple of questions here about the funeral costs. So
Mm.
I think we went over this the first time we went live about the situation, but can you let us know why maybe the victim family would not want to accept his help for the funeral?
Yeah, to be honest, there's not an actual, because I think when we first talked about it, and I can't remember, and I've been, like, seeing people be like, "Oh, if you accept money, then, like, you can't sue." Like, that's not true. Like, you can take anybody's money and still sue them.
Mhm.
From I think it's more so just like a personal standpoint. Do I want money from somebody I feel has caused the death of my loved one? That's either yes or no. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. Particularly if you look at his demographic, and certain people, like, maybe they don't have the money for a funeral. Like, I don't think there's a yes or no. There's no legal ramification that will happen to you for just simply taking money. Now, if you take money and it's attached to a contract that says, "Hey, you take this money, you cannot disparage me, you cannot do these things," that's completely different.
And how
So,
sick would it be for him to offer a contract attached to the money? Like, you owe these people. I think he owes them their funerals. You know what I mean? So if
mhm.
he were to attach a clause like that to it, he would be more demonic than I already think he is.
Yeah,
Like, it's
and I wouldn't be
crazy.
surprised, like, you would be surprised at the things people sign and the things that, I guess, like, the celebrity class has people sign. Like, if you go on a date with, like, certain people, like, you will sign an NDA beforehand. If you go to a party where certain people are, you will sign an NDA beforehand. And NDAs, which are like non-disclosure agreements, basically say you cannot say anything or you can say things within the bounds of this, are only as enforceable as or only as good as they are enforceable. So if you have the money to enforce it, then it's like, "Hey, I gave you an NDA. Like, I will sue you. I will make your life miserable." It's something similar. So I wouldn't be surprised if it came with strings. I mean, that would be awful and make him a more horrible person.
Mhm.
But I wouldn't be surprised because certain
No,
people have no shame.
exactly. Me neither. I could totally see that as a reason why no one has accepted it going, so far.
Mhm.
So now Josie has a question. Sorry, Jolie has a question for you, which is, do you think that Travis Scott will be able to do concerts again? So he was in the middle of working on a new album and everything. So if he were to finish it and start touring, what do you think? Could it happen? Can he get insured again?
I think that's going to be the question. Like, what insurance provider is going to want to insure him? And that's really the question because all of these concerts have insurance. You have to have a certificate of insurance, or the venue won't even allow you to do setup to do all these things. And so as an insurance provider, if I was Geico, which it's not Geico, that's not their insurance provider, but everybody knows Geico. If I was Geico, I'd be like, hell no. Like, the purpose of insurance is what if money. You pay me just in case maybe you think something bad is going to happen. And if that 1% thing bad happens, fine, I'll pay it out for you.
Yeah.
Most insurance companies do very well and have lots of money, including our fraud of a health insurance scam in the US, because most people like don't actually need those levels of health insurance, but we all pay into it. We all pay into it. And the idea is that, okay, when something bad happens to me, I should be able to get like my health care. I should be able to get these things. America has problems, so it doesn't really work like that all the time. But it's the same thing like with these artists. Like most artists, you go to the concerts completely fine. So maybe they pay $5,000, $10,000 a month. That insurance company kept all that money. They had to do nothing for it, but
So
it's good. It's
lucky.
like, oh, what if happens? But
Yeah.
then you have the Travis Scotts, like you have the sadly what happened in Manchester with Ariana Grande. You have the once in a blue moon like awful things, and the insurance then pays out of that money. So
Hmm.
as an insurer, I would never be like, oh, I know you're going to cause another problem, so why would I insure you?
Hmm. So, you know what? On the topic of this, if I feel like I'm always like trying to see both sides, but if the insurance goes, hey, we cannot, because you have a history of all of these things that you did and start inciting violence at your concert, can he not go, well, did you not know that before you insured me? Pay me. You knew that. Or
Well, so it doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. So no. And the other thing that the insurance, like what's probably going to happen, because insurance will take on a lot of risk, they will just up his premiums and have him pay more. So say he's paying $10,000 a month, I'd be like, all right, you cause issues. I want 50 grand a month, or I want whatever the premium is. They probably will just up his premium. Or
Okay.
at the very least, at the worst end, they just won't insure him. But at the very least, they would say, okay, I'll keep you, but you're going to pay more now.
Which I feel like could be what it comes down to for him, because he was a very high grossing artist. And I think that some people would be willing to take the risk. They probably feel like he's learned his lesson at this point, right? Like he can't have another accident like that. So let's just slap a huge premium on him and then insure him and see what happens there. So Lauren has a question for you. By the way, you guys, if you're just joining, as I am here with Stephanie from Wine and Chill, I've got a link to her channel in the description box down below. Please follow her for more pop culture meets legal world commentary. She's a former entertainment attorney, so turn tech attorney, so she knows exactly what it is that she's talking about. Please give her a follow. If you've got a question for her about the Travis Scott Astroworld Festival tragedy, please leave it in the comment section right over here in the chat box. We will get to it. Thank you all so much for all of your amazing questions. So Lauren's question here is, will they hire an outside agency to do an investigation to decide if he needs to be charged? He's from Houston and donated to the city of Houston, I believe. So there's a conflict of interest. I heard the FBI was getting in on this, right?
100% agreed, Lauren. And Houston PD declined to have a non-interested third party, which they shouldn't be in the position to decline. So they declined. They declined to have a third party. The Houston PD is investigating it themselves. So, which I don't know how like that works. It does not work, to be honest, to be frank. They should have a non-interested third party, such as the FBI, which is a federal agency, investigate the issue.
I could have sworn the FBI was already signed on to do it. So the FBI tried to take this on and Houston declined it.
I don't think the FBI tried. They offered, and then Houston declined it. Let me double check. And mind you, this is like from when I first looked, like a month ago.
And by the way, Brunette, Drake was named in 3 lawsuits, but we believe he'll be pulled out. Go ahead, Steph.
Yeah. So basically what they're doing now, they allowed the FBI to join the investigation with Houston PD. So they are not conducting a separate investigation, which is what they should have done.
Wow.
Which is, they're basically adding like manpower. Like, okay, your police department has obviously other crimes to do, crimes to solve. There's other crimes to solve, other people to help, hopefully, all these things. And we will come in with extra manpower. We'll loan out these people to you from the FBI and we'll help you with this. But it's not a separate third-party investigation, which is what should have happened.
Wow. So, Steph, is there any more legal tea that we should know about that we haven't already touched on in the situation? What else is going on with Travis right now?
Yeah, I think we've covered most of it. I think what's going to be interesting, and I think maybe we touched on it a little bit in the beginning, what we're going to see is whether or not these 276 cases get consolidated into one class action. Because to defend 10 cases, 20 cases, 30 is a lot. To defend 276 separate cases is a commotion. Like, and it's also tying up they're all filed for now in Harris County, which is the county that Houston is in. So it's in one courthouse, which there again are other lawsuits they need to look at. There are other crimes they need to help solve. There are other cases going on. So they're going to have to probably consolidate this. So that's going to be very interesting.
And so is there anything interesting about his legal team that you can tell us? Who is he hired? Because usually, like in the celebrity world, I know about like the Disso Queen, like what Gloria or Laura Wasser or whatever.
Yeah.
So who does he have on his
Yeah, he hired O'Melveny and O'Melveny and Melveny, or is it O'Melveny and O'Melveny, which is like a big law firm. And to be honest, like very corporate, very like white shoe. I think he wanted to steer away from any of like the more flashy names in entertainment because let's be frank, like 10 people sadly lost their life at his concert. Like it's not like you're not going to see his attorneys coming out and trying to like rally for him. You're not going to see any like big PR push most likely besides like them just telling him like, okay, go do these interviews because it doesn't make sense to do that and it's not going to help with the situation. So I think what you're going to see is like very boring, but very like smart lawyering of like, okay, we're going to fight it in court. We're going to try to consolidate it. We are going to, probably have this argument out with the insurance providers, etc. Because they're trying to, oh, thank you, Shannon Avan, for putting my YouTube. They're basically going to try to remove this from the spotlight as much as possible. I think that's the route his legal team is going down.
Mm-hmm. And, some people are bringing up some interesting points. A little bit after this tragedy, Travis went on to promote BetterHelp. And like a lot of people have suspected that he was paid for this because BetterHelp is a little bit controversial. I believe they've been said to sell people's information to other applications and stuff like that. And that he was maybe getting a kickback for all of the people who signed up, so
yeah,
I don't know.
Which is problematic. Yeah. There is a psychologist that basically, he's on Twitter, I forget his name, and BetterHelp for a long time was like trying to pursue him to get him on the platform. And he was like, no, you're going to take my patient's information and sell my patient's information. Like, first of all, this is a huge violation. It's inappropriate. This is like violation of privacy, etc. But when he was doing that, he explained the BetterHelp model, which is that they do have celebrity endorsements. And particularly when tragedies strike, they will partner with said celebrity, which is highly problematic. It's highly problematic. Yeah. And I think that they've done better now in that they are making sure that all of the therapists are licensed. But when they first started, there were accusations that not all the therapists on their platform were licensed.
Exactly. I don't know what happened. I fell down a YouTube rabbit hole around this time. I think it was like 2-3 years ago, where they claimed that this one YouTuber who is like a therapist on YouTube owned BetterHelp. Like it was so wild. All of the different accusations. That obviously was not true, but there was a lot. Yeah. There's been a lot about them for years. So Prairie says that Houston signed the permit for this concert. They don't want to be held liable, and that might be why they don't want outside people investigating. Does that hold weight potentially?
I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest. It's very problematic that they are involved, but yet there's not a third party separate investigation being conducted. Like people, how are you, like, are you going to tell on yourself? Highly unlikely. Like, are you going to say, actually, I realized I should have done something. I didn't do it. Actually, okay, fine. Like, no, as we have seen multiple times.
And now, if you had to guess, this is a great question, Lauren. How much money do you think Travis Scott could be paying in legal fees?
The two partners on his case alone, their hourly rate is probably $1,200 an hour minimum. So I'm awful at math. If you're on my channel, math is not my ministry, but yeah.
So how many hours like do you believe? Rate. If you had to guess, how many hours?
How many billable hours they're probably going to do on this case?
Yeah,
wow, in total. That's a good question. I would say because there's at least because how many hours? I would say at least 100 billable hours a month, probably more than that. And the partners, for context, the partners are not going to do like the grunge work. The way it works, like in law firms, the associates do all of the grunge work. So the associates, their rate is significantly less, but their rate is probably a good $300-400 an hour at these firms. Like it's not like the rate is low. They're going to have them comb through social media, like find all these posts, find different things that are going on, find evidence that, oh, look, these concert goers caused the problem. Or because what it's going to happen is if it gets to trial, or if it gets a little bit farther in the motion filings, they're going to start to say, actually, you know what, plaintiff, you are contributed to the negligence. You contributed to the problem. So you are contributorily negligent. And you know what, Grace, you went to the concert. I saw you acting a fool. It's 80% your fault. So you're suing me for $1 million. 800,000 of those dollars is your fault. So maybe 200,000 is my fault. Now let's argue about the 200,000. That's what they're going to start to do. That's what you're going to see, like the end game of being like, okay, let me find footage of Stephanie running around in the concert, doing who knows what. Okay, yep, you're contributory negligent. So they're going to start doing that as well.
Yeah.
They're going to start blaming the victims, which they haven't done it yet. They're holding off because the public will have a very negative reaction to that.
Exactly. How do you go about that? How? Like it's crazy. So now, if the city of Houston, can they potentially be sued for this as well?
Yeah, because it's the city of Houston is the one who issues the permit. The city of Houston is supposed to make sure events in their city are safe. Also, for what it's worth, being from Miami, Miami throws festivals all the time. They throw festivals notorious for drug use all the time. People do not die. This is showing that Houston does not have the proper infrastructure to host these types of events.
Mm-hmm. And is that his hometown, by the way, Houston?
Mm-hmm.
Houston,
Yeah.
Texas? Okay. Oh my God. You know what? I'm so fascinated by American litigation. Like they say that you guys are the most litigious people in the world. So it is interesting to see all of the angles
America
of
loves
this.
lawsuits.
Yeah.
America loves lawsuits.
So I'm Feminem says, watch the footage of the concert where he called his fans on stage, cussed out security, telling them to let them on stage. Okay, so that might have been, one of the things where he was calling people up on stage. It's bound to happen though, because behind the scenes, the lawyers will do shaming during the consultation. Yeah. Like how does this happen with like a clear moral conscience? For example, with
I don't think a lot of lawyers have clear moral conscience. As I tell you all the time, I have plenty of disdain for my profession.
When I heard about the Kobe Bryant situation, so Vanessa was suing the police who were spreading around the photo. She was saying that this was traumatic for her. And they go, okay, well, if it's traumatic for you, give us your psychiatrist records for the past 5 years. I'm like, they're so heartless.
So it was very rude. They said, oh, well, if we've traumatized you and you are in emotional distress, well, we need to see evidence of that.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
Oh my God. Now, Stephanie, let's wrap this up since we're so good on the story already. But is there anything that you want to make sure that we're aware of that we haven't heard of yet in this case?
Yeah. So I think in this case, we are just going to have to continue to watch and see like what is the actual defense going to be. Because in all these filings that we just looked at, it's literally disclaiming negligence. Okay, I disclaim all of this. That's not a defense. That doesn't say I disclaim this because these are the prongs of negligence. I didn't do those things. Or I didn't disclaim this because as an artist, I was just doing my job. None of that has happened yet. So that's what I think we need to wait and see. And that will show us like, okay, this is how these cases are going to go. Because right now he's said no defense. There's no plan laid out. Nobody actually knows what they're doing. So the case is not going away if that's what he thinks.
Well, that's the thing. So just a quick question for those of us like myself who are not lawyers, disclaiming, is that the same thing as denying? Can we use those interchangeably?
Yeah, the same thing. He's denying any liability. Like, I don't have any, I have a general denial is what he filed. General denial of all liability. Like, okay.
Okay.
And it has no meaning.
No, right? So if you were representing him as a lawyer, what would your legal strategy be to get him out of this?
To be honest, so I don't do litigation. I do contract law. So I'm not sure since litigation is such a contentious game of chess.
Yeah.
Which is like very different from like transactional law, which transactional law is supposed to be, and I say supposed to be because it's not, but it's supposed to be like very collaborative. Like I want to negotiate with you in good faith because I want us both to win so like we can just be done with this. Litigation is very much like I'm going to stick it to you and I'm going to play chess. And so I don't think that they filed this general disclaimer, general denial to actually get the case dismissed because there's no factual basis in there. I think they just did it to like clean it up to like, okay, we answered within the time, move on, consolidate it, and then let's get rid of all of these cases together. I think that's what they're doing.
Okay. So can you break that
down? They're going to consolidate 276 cases into one.
So how does that work though? I really don't. So if everybody has a different issue, this person was injured, this person was killed, like, you know what I mean? Like, how does all of that consolidate into one trial? And why is that the goal?
the people that unfortunately they had a family member that passed away, those won't get roped in, but everyone else, people that were just generally at the concert, the festival, they have similar claims. So the majority of them, their claims are almost exactly the same, which is negligence, gross negligence, intentional infliction of emotional distress, negligent infliction of emotional distress, and then premises liability. So since their claims are all the same, the judge can likely say like, okay, Harris County Courthouse cannot handle 270 of the same exact thing. Like we don't have the judges for this. We cannot pull all these people. Like we are going to consolidate that. And that's likely what's going to happen with all of just the festival goers that have the same claims. And to
Okay.
be honest, before it even gets there, what they'll probably do is start picking off certain people and say, like, actually, Stephanie filed, and nope, I see Stephanie's right here, consuming who knows what, doing who knows what. Nope, remove her case completely. So they're going to start picking at them, but like that's going to take so much more time and manpower. So I think that's what we're going to see. Right now, it's just them filing to say, like, hey, I'm at the deadline, move along so I can like build out the strategy.
And so at this point, we don't even know if everybody who has filed a lawsuit against him, which is 200 plus people, if everybody
Mhm.
was actually affected by this in some way, like if they were injured or anything like that. So if somebody was not injured, would they still be able to, would their lawsuit still be valid on the basis of, you put me in a traumatic situation. I saw,
Yeah.
dead people around me. Like, can that still
Mhm.
happen?
Yeah, so that would fall under, so there's negligent infliction of emotional distress. Like, okay, you should have known that having people sadly be crushed next to me would cause me emotional distress. And an intentional infliction of emotional distress is you purposely stood on that stage and saw people screaming, and you purposely caused all this problem to me.
Mm-hmm.
So even though those people may not have physical harm, emotional harm can still be there. So like, and that's, I would say, not easy to prove, but can be proved simply by showing like, okay, I've been in therapy since we started this. I'm having night tremors. I'm having this. I'm having all of these things are happening to me. My hair is falling out, blah, blah, blah. I'm stressed, etc. So they can be proven. Just because it's mental and emotional does not mean like it's not quantifiable.
Yes. That's a good answer. Thank you so much for that, by the way.
Awesome.
So, Tracy has a question, which is Travis is also a producer on this show. Does that matter?
Yes, so he got sued in his person, so as his government name. His record label, Cactus Jack, also got sued as being one of the producers of the show. And then it's him, Cactus Jack, which he owns, and then someone other entity that he also owns that was involved also was sued. So yeah, he's getting sued for any types involved, for being on the stage, for producing the show, for he's probably like Live Nation is the promoter. There's probably some agreements between him and Live Nation in the contract that says, hey, you have to do etc things. So he's getting roped in his involvement there as well.
Mm-hmm. So let's just say every single person who has sued him, so the
Mhm.
$13 billion total, let's say, that he's being sued for, if all of those people won and there was a $13 billion loss judgment handed down from the judge, what now? Who can pay off $13 billion as a person?
Exactly. So people always say you have to sue deep pockets. You can sue anybody, but it doesn't mean that person has the money.
Mm-hmm.
So when you sue somebody and I know they don't have 13 billion. I know this insurance money is not 13 billion. It will likely get lessened by the judge. And if it doesn't get lessened, they just put you on a payment plan. They're like, okay,
Mm.
you don't have it today and you don't have it tomorrow, but I'm sure by the time you're 75, we'll get pretty close. And they just put you on a payment plan. Whether or not you try to evade that, people do all the time. Is it
And
like a
then,
different story?
but then how do they kind of decide how does the pecking order happen? So who's
Mhm.
priority here? The families of people who have passed away, the people who are gravely injured and have huge medical bills. How does this get
So
dispersed?
yeah, so the judge would decide that. So which is why people are not going to want to separate their case. They don't want their case consolidated because if they get consolidated, there are multiple attorneys representing different people. So as an attorney, they're on a contingency fee. So what happens if me and you are an attorney and like we get roped in with 20 other attorneys? Like who's getting paid? Like, am I getting paid first, or is Grace getting paid? Who's getting paid? That's why people want it to be separate. It's most likely going to get roped in together. Also, it's good to think of it like bankruptcy court is very big on, okay, the creditors get paid out first. Are you a preferred creditor, gets paid out? Like bankruptcy has a specific order.
Yeah.
General civil litigation does not. So it would be up to the judge to decide, like, okay, unfortunately, this person, their family member passed away. That family member was supporting the entire family. Like they're getting paid first. Like the judge would set that.
Mhm.
But there aren't any specific rules on how that works in like general civil litigation.
So this is more of a hypothetical now. So if this were to happen, you know what? Here's my question. Let's before we even get into the child support thing, because please remind me. I know I'll forget, but I wanted to ask you if you see Travis eventually asking Kylie for child support down the line, because he'll have no money, right? If all of this works out for the victims. But before we even get into that, how much do you think he will ultimately end up, be charged with paying back to people?
That's a good question. I'm not sure because there is, I didn't look through all 274. So from what I saw, most of these plaintiffs are suing Travis Scott, Cactus Jack, his label that he owns, Live Nation. They're suing the other promoters. They're suing the festival venue. They're suing like 10 different defendants. So if my goal is I sued for $1 million, I don't care who pays it as long as it gets paid. And that is going to be between the defendants to fight with each other. So even though there's 10 billion in one lawsuit, it's not just against Travis Scott. Like Live Nation will probably pay out the brunt of this. So he will definitely, most likely, if he's found liable, have to pay for some of this, or if he settles. But Live Nation has much deeper pockets than any one artist by themselves.
Can you remind me again what Live Nation is? That's not the insurance company, is it?
No, Live Nation is a music promoter. So most of the concerts you attend in this, they're global, but like definitely in the States, Live Nation promotes and hosts most of them. So like
Mhm.
as the promoter, they find the venue, they get everyone together, they do like the marketing, the promotion behind it. So Live Nation is like the big entity. They're the largest music promoter in the US.
Ah,
I don't
okay.
know about globally, but in the US for sure.
hmm And now, at what point could Travis, if at a certain point, could he expect to have his bank accounts frozen?
Oh, that's interesting. Not for many years, because this litigation is going to drag on for at least 3-4 years. Because he's not going to settle. He's not going to settle anytime soon, because it will set the precedent. Like, oh, if I settle, I have to be bothered and settle with all these people.
hmm And another great question from Prairie Flower, which is, will not Live Nation go bankrupt? Can they go bankrupt to get out of paying?
Too sadly, and to be honest, similar, if not worse, things have happened at Live Nation concerts. Which,
Really?
when this all came out, there was like a very good article. I think it's linked in my video that I did about this, that detailed all of the issues Live Nation has had at their concerts, and was like, "Hey, at this concert, 10 people died. This concert, 20 people died." Um, I'm not sure, but I think so. Correct me if I'm wrong, that the Manchester United concert that Ariana Grande did. And of course, that is a fringe case of a violent person who sadly murdered all those people. But I think that might have been a Live Nation concert as well. So the article was basically trying to insinuate that, hey, y'all security is always janky. Like, what's the problem?
Mhm.
Um, they're also, to their defense, there's also plenty concerts that nothing bad happens. It goes just fine.
Mhm.
So I don't think that this will bankrupt them, because there have been similarly awful things that have not bankrupt them.
Have you like looked into how much they've paid out? Like, what's the biggest settlement that
Ooh,
they've
that's a
paid
good
out?
question. I'd have to look that up. I'd have to look that
Yeah.
up. I'm not sure.
Let's note that. You know what? A couple of you guys were asking for us to react to the Charlemagne interview, but maybe we'll do that another time. I don't know, Steph. Tomorrow I'm kind of out of here. Saturday as well. Sunday, would you like to cover it? Sunday, the chat with Charlemagne the God, and then kind of get into Live Nation's history of paying out people, or whenever you're ready. You just let me know.
Yeah, I'll let you know, because my best friend's in town this week. So I'll let you know. Maybe next week we can do it.
Nice. Okay, so you guys, again, I am here with Stephanie from Wine and Chill, who has graciously been here to give us her legal opinion about this Travis Scott Astroworld Festival tragedy, please, I've got a link to her channel in the description box down below. Subscribe and check it out. We might do the Charlemagne the God reaction over on her channel, so you definitely want to, be in the loop for that. So please subscribe to her channel and keep an eye out. So just to get back to the Kylie Jenner situation, you guys, and please, if you're enjoying this, give it a thumbs up so that we're able to keep providing content for you guys. Thank you so much. So to Kylie Jenner. So let's say right now, Kylie and Travis Scott, there's no child support situation between the two of them. Even when they were split up. Right now they're together, but when they were split up, there's nothing because they were both rich. There's no need. But if this happens and Travis Scott runs out of money, can you see him trying to file for child support on Kylie, the billionaire, alleged billionaire?
He would have to have custody of his kids to do that. And I don't see that happening.
No.
So yeah, you have to be the primary parent and the primary caregiver to ask for child support.
So then what can he do?
I highly doubt he ever would be.
Yeah. How would he bounce back? How does someone bounce back from something this big? A famous person, a big illegal blunder like this. What happens?
I'm not sure. And I'm not sure, to be honest, that they should bounce back. That's kind
true.
of my opinion. Particularly like people that have a propensity to do the wrong thing. It's not like, oh, this is all of a sudden. Like there are multiple instances of him doing these types of things. This is just the largest instance.
Wow. I think that's a good point. Someone like Travis, who has been so irresponsible, who's bragging about people being injured at his concerts for all these years. Maybe this is finally it. Like this is finally potentially the nail in the coffin for him, and to stop this sort of alleged incitement of violence. Lauren says, would he be able to give his money to Kylie to avoid paying out? Would she get into trouble if she did so?
If yes, but I don't think like it would get that far, to be honest. I think Chris would probably just distance Kylie from the situation, to be honest. Like what is the purpose? Exactly. What is the purpose to hold on?
Just ditch him, raise the baby yourself, Kylie. You got this. So I believe the answer to this is yes. Can Travis's interviews he does in the interim be held against him in court?
Yep. Yep, 100%.
So he's got to be careful with these interviews. So again, we will eventually be doing a reaction to this. So please, link in the description box, subscribe to Wine and Chill over here on YouTube, and then keep an eye out because we probably will be doing it on Stephanie's channel, maybe on mine, but keep an eye out, okay? And thank you all so much for being here, by the way. Thank you so much. Stephanie, as always, you are absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for providing your expertise over here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I always love coming over here. It's fun.
Of course. And once again, thank you so much to you, Shan and Van, for moderating this chat. You guys, if you haven't already, please subscribe to Shan and Van as well. She's got some great pop culture videos that you don't want to miss out on. But in the meantime, please subscribe to both channels, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye, guys. Thank you so much for your great questions too. Bye.